somebody away today, I think, it looks like. Is that right?
Yes.
Competitor's case is gonna want you to do this twice.
I can't make your
Not your problem. We got 11 o'clock, so we will get started. I'll go or forego introductions since this group knows who I am. This briefing is to provide you an overview of an officer-involved shooting that occurred last Friday night at approximately 11 p.m. in the 1900 block of 6th Street West. Our goal is to be transparent with the community and share as much information as legally allowed when such critical incidents happen. I'll provide information on police procedures and evidence relevant to the case that will give you and the public a better understanding of what took place based on what we know right now. The information that I'm about to share is preliminary and the investigation is ongoing. Our understanding of the incident may change as additional evidence is collected and reviewed, and we will update as needed. At approximately 11 p.m. on Friday, August 12th, officers were sent to a residence in the 1800 block of 6th Street West regarding a domestic disturbance. While en route, officers were notified by dispatch that the female victim had gone to a neighbor's house following an argument with her highly intoxicated boyfriend and that he was tearing up the house. The victim and neighbors both reported that they could hear things being broken next door prior to the, and that prior to the victim leaving, the suspect had punched a hole in the wall and broken a mirror. Officers were also notified that there was a loaded handgun in the residence. Upon arrival, officers met the victim at the neighbor's house, which is a duplex that shared a common wall with the victim's house, and they began to investigate, which was a partner family member assault call. The officers were told that there had been no noises for a little bit of time and that witnesses thought that the suspect had left. Shortly thereafter, officers heard a single gunshot coming from the duplex apartment next door. Officers immediately evacuated the neighbors and the victim, got them to safety, and notified dispatch that shots had been fired. Officers took up various positions of cover on the street, and within a few minutes, the suspect exited the residence and stepped onto the front porch. At that point, officers saw that he held a cell phone in his hand, and they gave him instructions to stop and get on the ground. The suspect refused to comply and walked off the porch and onto the sidewalk, where he began to head north. Officers continued to give commands, all the while moving north as well, using whatever cover they could find. At one point, the suspect raised his hands and began to walk backward. Officers then saw a handgun tucked into the waistband of his pants. The suspect was not compliant, and he walked backwards, facing south for about a block and a half to an alley between Avenue F and Park Hill. While doing so, the suspect kept lowering his hands to his waistband, but never actually grabbed the gun. He made several suicidal comments during that time. The suspect said that he was going to pull the gun out and put it up on the ground at one point, he was ordered to not touch the gun. He then touched the waistband 3 times without grabbing the gun. The 4th time, he grabbed the gun and began to pull it from his waistband. At that point, Officer Ryland Nelson, R-Y-L-A-N-D, N-E-L-S-O-N, he is a 6-year veteran, fired 1 round from his department-issued handgun at the suspect, striking him in the lower abdomen. The suspect went down and dropped his handgun. Officers moved to secure the suspect and quickly rendered aid until medical personnel arrived. The suspect is a 22-year-old male white Billings resident and was transported to the hospital, and he is currently listed as critical but stable. He was armed with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Picture on the screen right there. At this point, no arrests have been made, so we will not be naming the suspect at this time. The officer-involved shooting is being investigated by our detective division and agents from the Division of Criminal Investigation. A parallel administrative investigation will be conducted by our Office of Professional Standards to ensure policies, procedures, use of force protocols are followed, and additionally, they will determine if there are any training deficiencies that need to be addressed. When the investigation is complete, the case will be sent to the Yellowstone County Attorney's Office for any criminal charges. Additionally, the case will be sent to the Montana Division of Criminal Investigation to review for thoroughness, completeness, and objectivity. And last, at the discretion of the county attorney, a coroner's inquest can be required and a jury can be seated. No citizens or officers were injured, and per policy, Officer Nelson is in officer-involved shooting protocol and on administrative leave. We will be reviewing any neighborhood audio and video footage, body and in-car camera video, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. So those were obviously the overview of the scene, relatively small compared to some of our large scenes we've had in the past, and involved significantly fewer officers initially. I will say, just in closing, before I open it up to questions, 2 things: that our officers made every attempt to resolve this. Throughout this entire incident, on our initial review of our body cameras, the suspect was directed to get on the ground, stop moving, show his hands, and don't touch the gun a total of 73 times. 73 times were given those instructions and failed to comply. And I will say that I'm very disappointed that despite our proactive efforts, and they have been significant this last year, we continue to deal with domestic and gun violence. Both are senseless, and there's entirely too much in this community. And we will continue our efforts to try to get those numbers turned the right way. And equally concerning, I will say, is the number of incidents of suicide by cop. This is the 3rd recent officer-involved shooting for us that appears to be a factor. And we are mindful of this trend, and we're working on techniques to mitigate. But at the end of the day, our number 1 priority in any situation is the public safety, our officer safety, and trying to get people the help that they need. And as I say, we will continue our work in these areas, and hopefully we don't have any more of these situations. With that, I'll take questions.
Chief, how many officers responded?
Well, initially it was just 2 to handle the disturbance call, and so which is pretty standard for that type of call. Once the shot was fired, it was basically all available personnel were headed that direction. So they were coming from all over, and as usual, we need to set up perimeters. We need to make sure that that we have enough people to handle the situation appropriately. At that point, we still, let me see, so it was about 11 o'clock, we did have 2 shifts on. I don't know the total number, but I would say it would have been a significant response.
But Officer Nelson is the only one on admin leave.
He is the only one on admin leave, he is the only one that fired. Yeah, nobody else at this point we've determined needs to be on admin.
So you mentioned you're going to look over all the available video footage there is. So the body cams, were they activated during this interaction then? Okay.
Yeah, so any officer that was there, and again, if you're familiar with our systems, we have in-car camera. They're activated automatically when lights and siren go on. The body cameras are activated, they're tied into it as well. Our requirements is at any time anymore that we're going to deal with the public, the cameras are activated. So there will be a fair amount of footage from the cars and the cameras for our investigators to look at. The information that I shared on the number of commands that were given was what we got from the first review of body footage, body camera footage, I would say. The point being is that multiple times we gave instructions to resolve this peacefully, and it did not get any compliance.
In I believe the previous 3 OISs this year, the suspect has been known to law enforcement. Is that the case here?
Yes, we are familiar in that he's got a minor criminal record, mainly minor property crimes and traffic offenses. So that's how I would say that we're familiar with him. But other than that, nothing more significant. So.
The address 1804 6th Street. So is that a duplex?
Correct. Yeah. So the duplex is on the corner. They share a common wall, and so the initial incident took place in one apartment or residence, and the victim was at the other one. And so that's where the officers were when the inside gunshot went off. So obviously concerned that we're shooting through the wall. So they immediately evacuated everybody there, got them to safety, and then took up position outside of that residence until the suspect came outside.
Have they determined what side of the duplex the gunshot came from?
It came from the victim suspect side. So yeah, we know what the addresses are on that. Won't be too hard to find out where that is, but yeah, so it was one of the two.
Was the officer's reaction when he did fire the shot? You mentioned the trend of suicide by cop that's sort of been going. Was that the shot that was taken? Was that taking that into account, or was it just pure reactionary sort of?
Well, I don't know what they're immediately thinking. I can say that the fact that they immediately evacuated the residents of that place and took them to an area of safety, and he had them laying down behind vehicles and all that, I can tell you that their number one thought was safety of those individuals. At that point in time, man, we need to, and you've heard me say it before, is that we need to isolate it, and then we need to apply time with things so we can let things settle down. So there's a wide variety of things that they could have been thinking. Did that shot go through the wall? They didn't stick around to look. Did he shoot himself? I didn't determine that yet. And then was it just I'm angry and I fired in the floor or something? So those are things that you're thinking about. But at that point, let's get people safe. Let's isolate this. Let's apply time and try to get the thing resolved.
Okay, I guess I was thinking the shot by Officer Nelson, though. Like, he wasn't shooting to kill, he was just shooting to stop
the threat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, stop the threat. Yeah, and so as indicated, the round hit the lower abdomen, he went down and dropped the gun, that stopped the threat.
Okay.
talk about this trend of suicide by cop, can you speak to a larger trend of violent crime that you, I believe your department said had been going down in 2022? It seems like, I mean, this is, I believe, the 4th OIS that you've been involved in this year. Are you seeing that trend back the other way at all?
Our 6-month numbers really did not take into account the officer-involved stuff. So we're looking at homicides, aggravated assaults, things of that sort. Those went down. 13% decrease over the same period in 21. And so when you look at officer-involved stuff, you know, when we classify those, again, way down the road, but, you know, you get coroner's juries so far have ruled our shootings are justified. So they're not going to be ranked in those, you know, in those statistics. Kind of a standalone thing. The underlying thing, however, I mean, what brought us to this house was a PFMA, was domestic violence. I don't know whether it was at a misdemeanor level. I don't know whether it was at a felony level. That's what the investigators are going to determine on the front end. The fact of the matter is that we had domestic violence taking place, which is tough for us to really prevent unless we're standing in the kitchen. But we have an appropriate response. We were dealing with the victim on what took place, trying to make sure she was safe, find a place to go, so on and so forth, when this happened. So, and then of course, the other part of that is we have a significant incidence of violent crime where guns are prevalent. They are used in everything. And we're seeing a younger and younger crowd use them. It's easy to pull the trigger. When you start talking about teenagers that are with the gunplay, I mean, obviously their ability to work through some things, they're much more impulsive than others may be. So we're seeing a high propensity to solve problems with firearms. And there's a lot of them out there, and I think just in 6 months, our street crimes unit confiscated 120 plus in just everyone. That's just one unit. We're not talking the other units that are out there. So we're running into a lot of them. And then, of course, you know, interject the police department into a volatile situation. Somebody that is under the influence of drug or alcohol, maybe mentally ill, and we're trying to gain control, and there's firearms there. Nothing good happens there. That answer your question?
Yeah.
Not too much or more? Anything else? All right, thank you for coming. That will conclude this press conference. Again, if we have any additional updates, we will send that out probably through email, Twitter, regular lines of communications. Okay, good. Thank you all.